Good morning. My name is Mervyn Weston. I am 97 years old and a resident of Manchester, New Hampshire. In early 1963, Peter Friedman and Don Randall and I met in my house in Bedford to talk about the future education of our kids. The oldest were approaching high school age, and we wanted them to make sure to get the best education possible, small classrooms, high quality teachers. Bedford at that time did not have a high school. So what was our dilemma? How do we handle our dilemma? After much discussion, we decided that we'd try to start a prep school. None of us knew anything about how to start a prep school. Peter Friedman suggested we find an educator to help us. He also suggested Phil Hugney, the head of the St. Paul's summer program. We could ask him whether he would leave his job and start a new prep school. So Peter went to talk to Phil Hugney, and to my surprise, Phil Hugney accepted. One of the first steps was to name the school. I was in the advertising agency business at the time and had experience naming things. I suggested the name Derryfield School. Peter thought that was too close to Derryfield Academy, but after discussion, the whole matter, and knowing that the name Derryfield was important in Manchester, we decided we named the school Derryfield School. The next step was to get some seed money. We each put down $1,000 a piece, but we needed founders. So we went out and found several of our friends who were willing to also come into the project and put down $1,000 each. There were about 20 of us all together. This is back in 1963. Phil Hugney got the ball rolling. He hired a few teachers, and we rented a few rooms in the Manchester Boys Club. Peter Friedman became chairman of the board, and with the good help of his wife Ellie, they really established the school. The both of them actually made the school open. At this point, I got totally uninvolved. I was very active at that time in the civil rights movement and spent all my spare time, fighting for civil rights. I got involved in civil rights and started an NAACP in Manchester, which turned out to be 95% white, the whitest chapter in the country. Oddly enough, the same people who worked with me on civil rights also got involved in becoming donors to the Derryfield School. After a few years, we bought land in North Manchester and started a building. And today, of course, it's an amazing school and doing very well, and we're very proud of it. And I have to attribute this to Phil Hugney, Peter Friedman, and his wife Eleanor. Don Randall died not many years later, and I'm still here, happy with what we did. Today I am constantly amazed at what happened to the little Derryfield school that we started. Have wonderful teachers, and it's a real inspiration. Today, the school is a great asset to the community, Manchester community. It has a beautiful campus and very impressive student body. My wish to you is that you continue to do positive things for the community, and when you graduate, you do positive things in the world.
Hello, founders, trustees, parents, faculty, staff, students, and alumni. So glad to have you with us today for Founders Day. First, I'd like to commend our thespians on a marvelous production last night. They did a radio hour, War of the Worlds, and it was just excellently done, interesting, suspenseful. It was just wonderful. If you missed it, you can download the Anchor app and find it there, and I heartily encourage you to listen. I'm delighted to be with you to celebrate Founders Day. As you heard from Merv Weston's wonderful video, Ellie and Peter Friedman are considered by many to be the inspiration behind our school's founding. Peter was the first chair of the Board of Trustees, and the Founders Scholar Award is named in his honor. Peter was a Manchester businessman, and he had an inquiring and adventurous nature and a strong ethical core. He was a soldier in World War II and a peace activist for the rest of his life. He marched in the 1963 March on Washington with Martin Luther King Jr. and was a founding member of Manchester's NAACP. Peter cared deeply about fairness. He also had a passion for learning, a passion especially for art, music, and science. The Peter S. Friedman Award is given to the junior who exhibits high scholarship, character, and contribution to Derryfield School. Our 2019 Founders Scholar is Julia Tilton, and she will give her address today. Julia has a strong moral compass, she's a change maker and an inspired student, and all of us at Derryfield have been proud that she's been recognized by the wider world for her ideas and her contributions, and especially her community service. We're confident that Julia will go on into her life and really live Derryfield's mission of being a valuable member of any community that she joins. This fall, Julia enters Vanderbilt University as an Ingram Scholar, and this prestigious program enables students to combine a Vanderbilt education with their continued commitment to community service. Julia really embodies the spirit of the founders, and I'm so honored to introduce her to you today. Thanks so much.
First, I would like to express my gratitude to Dr. Carter and each of the Derryfield founders, who over 50 years ago had the courage to establish an academic model so powerful that now, in this time of unprecedented reliance on technology, Derryfield faculty and administrators are able to deliver the same meaningful curriculum and Derryfield values we all know and cherish, like kindness. In the summers, I work at an overnight camp on Lake Winnipesaukee, where kindness is at the heart of what we value. We teach our girls that hate is a strong word, and that collectively, we are much more powerful if we are loving and accepting than if we are divided and hostile. Each Sunday evening, the entire camp gathers around a blazing campfire, where we sing songs under an inky sky full of constellations. One of my favorite songs is called One Little Candle. The first verse is as follows. It is better to light one little candle than to stumble in the dark. Better far that you light just one little candle. All you need is a tiny spark. As I've grown up, I realized this song I love is about much more than beautiful imagery. It is a metaphor for kindness. It demonstrates that we all have the power to be kind if we light our little candles. This brings me to what I would like to talk to each of you about today, kindness. Now, in our society, we have unfortunately arrived at the conclusion that kindness is a personality trait, an adjective to be used in a string of descriptive words to point out that someone is tall, or short, or athletic, or smart. But kindness isn't like that. We all have the capacity to be kind. It is not merely a characteristic that some are afforded with and the rest have to somehow do without. Kindness is a muscle. Everyone has it. but it's our choice whether we use it, exercise it, strengthen it. At Derryfield, kindness often occurs in the classroom, a setting where we are taught that debates can be civil and disagreements can be respectful. Throughout my years sitting in English and history classrooms, I've noticed that even when debates get heated, my peers still find the courage to be considerate. This year, in my AT US History course, we engaged with content that was sometimes incredibly divisive. Individuals did not always agree on certain issues, and emotions were definitely heightened during some classes. But there was always kindness. It seemed that right as the conversation was about to boil over, someone would make a lighthearted joke, and we would remember where we were and why we were there. To learn, not only from our readings, but from one another and from ourselves. In these situations, we would almost let out a collective breath, diffusing any tension. We would choose to smile at one another instead of dividing ourselves based upon our views. It makes me proud that in these moments, we chose to light our little candles. But what makes me perhaps prouder are the moments when kindness emerged from more unexpected places at Derryfield, such as on sports teams. Freshman year, my experience benchwarming as a varsity lacrosse player was intimidating. The upperclassmen on the team were incredibly talented, but the dynamic was less than friendly. I barely spoke all season, unsure where to find confidence in an unfamiliar environment. As I think back to that season, however, I remember the acts of kindness that illuminated those days like bright flames. There were 2 upperclassmen in particular who consistently went out of their way to be kind. Sometimes it was as simple as a "good job today" after a tough practice. Even with the smallest gestures, these acts of kindness stayed with me long after the events of practice had faded. Kindness, I learned from that season, is not always easy. Sometimes it means going out of your way, stretching beyond the confines of your comfort zone. But making that choice to offer a smile or extend words of encouragement to someone can make all the difference, whether you know it or not. It certainly did for me that spring. This past winter, I played as one of the only seniors on the JV basketball team. I found myself reflecting upon my experience from freshman year and how intimidated I had felt as an underclassman. I tried to cultivate kindness on the basketball team, befriending freshmen and sophomores in the locker room and during practices. By the end of the season, I was wishing I had played basketball earlier in high school, for the memories I'd made were some of the best from my time at Derryfield. Of course, basketball did not come without its challenges. While I made a conscious choice to be friendly and kind to my teammates throughout the season, I struggled at times to be kind to myself. There was one practice on a Monday we had off from school where I spent almost 3 hours in the gym trying to perfect my layup. At first, my thoughts were encouraging. Pick up the ball a step earlier, extend your arm higher, more power. But as the ball continued to find ways to bounce off the backboard and avoid the hoop, my thoughts turned more negative. You're never going to get this. You have no coordination. Why did you think playing basketball would be a good idea? I became frustrated. I wanted to get it right so badly. But when I needed more than anything, more than constructive criticism or practice dribbling, was kindness. I needed to be kind enough to myself to allow for patience. So I kept at it, recognizing that I needed to keep a positive outlook where I was literally never going to make my layup. As the hour turned into 3, my thoughts turned kinder. You're getting closer. You can make the next one. Before I knew it, the ball was swishing through the net almost every time. Like I said, kindness doesn't always come without struggle or hardship, especially when it comes to self-love and acceptance. It takes work. It takes the intentional decision to prioritize empathy and understanding above everything else. It can even be uncomfortable. But just as when we exercise our muscles, we don't get stronger if we don't push ourselves. So, I challenge each of you to strengthen your kindness muscle. Commit an act of kindness that makes you a little, or a lot, uncomfortable. The final verse of the camp song, One Little Candle, goes like this. If everyone lit just one little candle, what a bright world this would be. So I will leave you with this. I hope you choose to light your one little candle, even when it is difficult. And I hope all of us, with our little candles, can make the world a brighter, kinder place. the matches are always in our hands. Thank you. Next, we have Mike Yuan with a musical performance. Now, on to the exciting part, introducing the 2020-2021 Founder Scholar. The recipient of this year's award is both logical and hardworking. A student who is fully engaged in every setting, from the classroom to the sports field. Fortitude and excellent collaboration skills are what enabled this year's awardee to reason fluidly through complex problems, whether on the textbook page or in society at large. Described by her English teacher as an academic all-star, this year's awardee has a clear passion for learning. In the classroom, she is humble and holds a tremendous sense of personal regard for others as she finds ways to incorporate the real world into her studies. Her math teacher notes this awardee's quiet intensity and drive, as she truly enjoys throwing herself into each lesson. Her science teacher echoes this sentiment, describing how this student leads by doing. Though she may not be the loudest voice in the room, her history teacher observes, this student drives classroom discussions, a testament to the respect others have for her. On the field, this student excels as an athlete. Calling her the perfect teammate, her field hockey coach attributes this student's success to her positive attitude, her energy, and her tenacity, which are infectious. What makes this year's recipient so extraordinary, though, is her continued dedication toward creating a better future for our planet and all those who inhabit it. Whether she is brainstorming strategies with Green Club on how to reduce her carbon footprint, writing powerful opinion pieces on climate change for Lamplighter, or advocating for legislation with Citizens Climate Lobby, this year's recipient is at once an activist and a scientist. It is my pleasure to present this year's Peter S. Friedman's Founder Scholar Award to Catherine Gage.